Hello, everybody. It is me, Pacific, on a Saturday. Everybody have a good week. Work has been going well, and that's good. The dynamics of work have been going well. Routes good, kids good, break rooms good. Somebody said that somebody who left, that we're all glad she left, hates it at the other place and wants to come back, and I'm like, no, please no, please no. It is amazing how much peace there can be in a workplace when a woman, one woman, who's a legend in her own mind, alpha female, ghetto queen, whatever you want to call her, leaves. There's an element or a feeling of more peacefulness in there, and we've all talked about it quietly and said, do you notice the difference in the break room this year? Amazing stuff. I wanted to talk about evolution. I mean, how many times have we beat that dead horse? But I wanted to talk about it in a fresh and different way because people make it too complicated. The so-called scientists, the atheists, the God doesn't exist and your God is a joke and your little, myth and fairy tale and on it goes. You just aren't going to get into those arguments. The Bible's very clear that the natural man comprehendeth not the things of God. They are foolishness to him. They are spiritually discerned. Discerned in that context meaning they're blind. You can yell at a blind man all you want and tell him, don't you see that Grand Canyon? You're standing right on the edge of it. And he goes, no, I can't see it. You can yell at an atheist. You can yell at an evolutionist and say there is no science to prove your stuff, and they won't get it. They've been indoctrinated according to a grid of educational thought that is not so much education as it is brainwash. You cannot reason with a fool. The Bible said the fool has said in his heart there is no God. But for people like myself and you and women and men and teenagers tuning in, let's give you something you can grasp that doesn't take any rocket scientist at all to figure it out. I'm going to start with the premise, just like this laptop that I'm talking to you on. Let's make something very crystal clear. I don't care if it's my pickup truck. I don't care if it's canning jar. They have elements and proof of design. Here's a flashlight. See? That doesn't just come into existence by accident. Neither does this glass, neither does this paper towel, and neither does this banana peel, which I just emptied the contents inside the peel into my stomach. This didn't just happen by accident. Car wash token. If you were to go up to an evolutionist and say, guess what? This can of Rubber Flex leak repair just evolved. They'd go, okay. But yet, when it comes to the human body, evolutionists raise the preposterous belief system, the idea that we just happened by accident. So let's start from the top. Let's start with the basics, and let's talk about why evolution cannot possibly, even for a minute, be true. We're not going to get into quantum physics. We're not going to get into Darwin's BS, because that's ultimately all it is. Darwin found absolutely nothing when he went to the Galapagos Islands on the HMS Beagle, or the SS Beagle, or not a steamship, but the waste of time. Darwin had a problem with suffering in the world. He said that if God is good and there's a God, why does he allow all this? And of course, Darwin, all he'd have to do is read the first few chapters of Genesis and see that God said he created everything and saw that it was good. And when man sinned, we infected the hard drive of creation with a virus that there's only one antivirus for. The blood of Jesus Christ shed on Calvary. Do you notice? Those that are humanist, evolutionistic, atheist, the so-called scholars of our day, running around trying to put a Band-Aid on all the social problems, and guess how far we've gotten in solving any of those problems? Ching, zero. Politicians continue to get corrupt. Cost of living goes up. Poor people are trodden down. Rich people get away with murder. And it seems like there's a prevailing mentality, especially in the U.S. today, that the bad guy wins. So we're evolving. Well, let's just start with this, okay? This is my fine red hair. It's interesting that if you take this hair and put it under a microscope and you do some tests, this has my DNA code all in it. If you take drugs, it'll show up in your hair. But what's interesting about hair is where it grows. Here, 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 down below, sometimes around the rumpus. Then you get it on your legs, and in my case, I'm a hairy galoot on the arms. But what if hair grew all around your eyeballs? It doesn't. How come it's not above the lip, but on it? How come it's not on your tongue? How come there's no hair on the bottom of your feet, like Sasquatch? Another myth. We're going to talk about some simple things. It may sound like, well, duh, but it needs to be remembered that in this world of so-called feigned complex ideas, sophisticated, educated, intellectual elitism that people claim, well, I went to college and I studied to be an anthropologist or a geologist or a dorkologist or a geekologist or an evolutionologist, whatever you want to call it, that often in our hectic, harried-paced world, just trying to keep afloat, trying to keep alive, we miss the simple things and need to be reminded. Eyebrows. It's interesting that we have two, one over this eye, one over that eye. We don't have a unibrow. Of course, I think Bert and Ernie did. But let's talk about the simplicity of that. Let's talk about how simple the eye isn't. Shine a light in this eye here, and guess what happens? Whoosh. I find that interesting. That just happened by accident. When there's less light, the eye goes ding. The eyes close. The eyes constantly blink to moisturize themselves. Just the fact of vision alone is incredible. That I can open my eyes and see this. And that eye can take in sights. And there's two of them, and it's interesting that they're placed up here. They're not down here. They're not on the end of your toes. And people look at me and go, okay, Pacific, you're retarded. No, I'm not. Because one of the things that evolutionists like to say, they like to laugh at people of faith. They like to laugh at the belief in God and say it's a fairy tale, it's a myth. And it takes way, 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 way more faith to believe evolution took all this stuff, put it all together in the symmetry and the way it did. And we're going to talk about that. We got one mouth and it's located right here. Now, we all know that some people talk out of their butt. We know that. But the mouth is right here. Can you imagine if you're, pardon me for being crude, but we're going to be a little bit satirical here, so bear with me. All those of you that are under 18, you might want to get your parents' permission to watch this. What if your lips were between your butt cheeks? That every time you had to talk, you had to pull down your pants and go, hey, it's getting hot down here. You laugh, right? I find it interesting that the eyes are balanced. Then between that, you have your nose. Then you have your mouth. By the way, when you breathe, your nose, your mouth, the oxygen goes down your throat and into your lungs. I find that interesting that this all just happened by accident in 2 ears. We don't have an ear here. We don't have one here, but they're equalized somewhat. Just hearing is incredible. Anvil, hammer, stirrup, all the little things in there that do the little thing. Let's talk about the digestive system. You eat, and all kinds of acids and chemicals in your body break down the food and do what it does to it. Stuff passes through a digestive system, through your stomach, goes through the liver, goes through the kidneys, does all the different things, goes through your intestines, And it's interesting that those intestines actually move and they push. That's why when you suddenly feel, oh, I gotta go potty, those intestines are going and squeezing stuff down. Just think that if that did not happen, just think if your intestines didn't move and you just ate and everything just went and you just bloated up. What did it take for the vehicle of evolution to refine things in such a way that it said, okay, we got to have a stomach, got to have a digestive system, pancreas, liver, kidneys, all this stuff. How did evolution know how to put all that in there? And that the design an intestine that convulses and moves and does its little muscle spasms to push out your waste matter. How about pee? Let's talk about us men for pee, okay? When a man has sex and he gets hard and erect, we're going to talk about that too, because the erection and all that is quite interesting. We're going to talk about that when a man is having sex and he gets all hard, there's something called the vas deferens. The vas deferens shuts off the urine so that the semen can come out. I find that little gate very interesting because it's like, that just happened by evolutionary accident. You know, some guys are disgusting and they like to pee all over their girl. I think that's gross. But when you're having intercourse with her and you're about to ejaculate, you're not going to take a whiz in your girl. God made sure that he put that into place. I think it's interesting, a woman's breasts, that those nipples, when they're sucked on in pregnancy, for the most part, produce milk. I find that very, very interesting. And two breasts. We don't have one down here between her legs and one up here. They're right here. Let's talk about attraction. How it is that a man can look at a woman's breasts and just those, I don't mean to boil it down to this because I like breasts myself, and how they look and they just get us every time. I find that very interesting that the evolution just put that into place. That man would have a natural attraction towards nipples. We all men talk about when nipples are poking through a woman's shirt, that it's hard to keep your mind where it's supposed to be. I find that very interesting. I find it interesting that we got a left arm and a right arm just placed in just the right place with wrists that have all the corresponding movements and the fingers, that I don't have to sit there and say, finger, please move. Okay. Hey, ant. Zot, zot, zot. It doesn't. Evolution is preposterous. Not only is there clearly design, but the placement of everything on our body. That we have also a female who is different than us. That they're more emotional based. Men are more logic based. Men are hunter-gatherers. Women are nurturing. I find that interesting that in the sexes, that evolution still cannot explain the fact that women are this. And what's happening today, because people are in such an anti-God vendetta, that they're trying to tell women, hey, you've been oppressed and repressed by men for so long. You can play tennis. You can play basketball. You can play football. You can do anything a man can do. BS. I know women are out there in sports. I know women are trying to prove something. But originally, just the construct of a male and a female is radically different in so many ways. I think it's very interesting that God created a penis that fits inside of a vagina. And just the whole thing of that movement causes arousal, causes her to come, causes him to come. And when the man comes, he ejaculates, which is exactly what God says, to procreate, that we were made to procreate. And you find today women are yelling and screaming, men are pigs, men are pigs. All they think about is sex. What I find more than anything else with all people in both sexes is just people are rebelling God. They're rebelling. And if you watch people and how they conduct their lives, people like to pat themselves on their back. I went to college. I bought my house. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I know I shouldn't insert this because some of my trolls out here love it when I say this. Oh, here he goes on about traffic again. People cannot follow the rules. They don't want to follow the rules. I watched a blonde-haired, high-maintenance woman in her SUV get in the right turn lane. Busy intersections. Multiple lanes. Tons of traffic behind me in all 3 lanes. Stopped at the light. This woman decides, hey, I learned in kindergarten that I can push and get at the front of the line. She learned that well. So she gets there, light changes, puts her turn signal on, cuts in front of me in the through lane. I honked. She ignores me. And I get down, catch up to her down at the next light because she's now stalled by much traffic now trying to get on the freeway and it's all backed up. And I look at her and she will not turn her head and look at me. I always marvel at that because I'm like, boy, you carry yourself like you're some mature high-end woman with your hoopty SUV and you can't even look at me and you think that that's good behavior. And this is the thing about evolution. And atheists just hate it when I say this because they think, oh, come on, that doesn't prove anything. I see human behavior getting worse. I see women and men becoming more self-centered, more selfish. I see people going, it's every man for himself, which fits very much with the philosophy that evolution has taught for years, survival of the fittest. It's interesting that when I look at the construct of the human body, just the fact that we got fingernails at the end of all these digits and we got fingernails at the end of our toes, I find it interesting that evolution said, well, you got to have a fingernail there to protect that. Well, I tell you what, if I didn't have fingernails, you know, those little key rings, it'd be hard to pull that apart and put your key on there. You need your fingernails for that. If you don't have fingernails, it'd be kind of hard to scratch things. This isn't going to do much on bare skin. I find it interesting that we have 5, this hand 5, that hand 5 toes, 5 toes. How come not 10 on one hand and 4 on the other? But evolutionists laugh at that. They laugh and say, oh, you're ridiculous, you're uneducated, you're one of those dumb Christians that believes in fairy tales and the Bible can't be proved. There is actually more proof that the Bible is accurate, that the Bible has been handed down to us accurately, going back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, going back to manuscripts. There are more manuscript proof than any of Socrates, any of Plato, any of Shakespeare. And yet we never put an acid test to any of that stuff. Oh, well, that's Shakespeare. It's obvious with the unrelenting attack on Christian beliefs, the Bible, that God does exist. God exists because when you have so-called people in this world sitting at the top level of our universities telling us there is no God and that evolution is a fact. When I was a kid in school, it was called the theory of evolution. And yet, they shoot themselves in the butt. The second law of thermodynamics, the law of entropy, that all things are wearing down, dying, decaying. That right there is a huge kick in the balls to evolution. Why? Because we're not evolving. I watch people's habits today. Addictions are higher now than they were in 1900. Addiction to porn, addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs, addicted to social media and gadgetry and TV and materialism has hit an all-time epidemic high. And in our day and age, we've seen some new things come on the scene. An addiction to pets and dogs. You go back 1900s, people were living, farming. Women were keepers of the home. Women learned to sew, cook, bake, clean, please their man. Man went and worked his butt off all day. There was none of this competitive drama. Oh, you had the cantankerous woman, you had stuff like that. But by and large, you didn't have men sitting on their butts smoking pot, playing video games all day. You certainly didn't have teenage girls going... I mean, we have hit a new form of mental retardation today. You got beautiful women, good-looking women, and all they're doing today on all their free time is, 150 pictures, 125, 150 pictures the average 25-year-old woman has in her cell phone of herself. Evolving. Socially, we're becoming more disconnected. Though we talk on the internet, though we have so-called Facebook friends and you can be liked and all that, at the end of the day, 90% of your Facebook friends don't have your back. Me, in my real world, no kidding, probably know more people than all my fans combined because of my travels and everything, and I'm very outgoing. That I could go back to Hibbing, that I could go to Hong Kong after years later, and people would say, oh, hey, Pacific. They would remember me, and they would recognize me. I get around, and the fact is I move and breathe in my world. How many people on the social media are even going to be your friends in real life? I think it's interesting when we talk about the tongue. The tongue has the ability to taste things. Can you imagine if we didn't have taste buds? And some people, unfortunately, have lost theirs due to illnesses, stuff like this, and they will tell you eating sucks because everything's cardboard. That God built in our tongue the ability to taste things. I find that very interesting, and evolution is just so fallacious that they don't look at the complexity of the body. Look at the teeth. Why weren't the teeth put in our butt? Why are they here? Connected with the tongue, with saliva glands to keep things moist. How does evolution explain all that stuff? That we don't have a mouth down here in our left breast. I mean, I don't mean to be crude, but how come our penis isn't at the top of our head? Though some people out there would say that some people are a real DICK head. I find it interesting it's down there between our legs. I find it interesting that we walk on our feet, not our hands. That our head isn't here, though there's some people in the world that you wonder if their head is where their butt is. When you look at the simplicity of the argument against evolution, it's profound. That there is no possible way that this just happened. And if you unpack the very premise of evolution, that all this junk somehow morphed into something else out there in space, that all this primordial slime came into existence and some cell floated up on the beach, a cell, and it washed up on the beach and it went, it was trying to constipate it. And became a salamander or a tadpole. The ludicrousness of that. And those same people laugh at us and say, oh yeah, and God just spoke all this into existence. Yep, he did. He said, let there be. God created the atom. God created the gene, the genome, the DNA, the RNA. God created the sun, the light, the oxygen, the energy that comes to our wires is not all hydroelectric, that there's energy that just exists because God is. Again, I submit to you that when you look at the earth, it's interesting that we have an atmosphere. We have evening and morning, which defines seasons, stars. We have just the right temperature on the earth that we don't burn up or freeze to death as humankind. Do we have oceans, which we can get fish from? That we grow fruit trees, and we can... All this stupid waste of money by the evolutionists, by the atheists directing our world affairs today. And don't kid yourself. The atheists, the evolutionists, the humanists are running the world, not Christians. Let that sink in. We're worried about running out of resources. We're worried about global warming. Not me, they. All these bad things are going to happen. It's like, I read the end of the book, and that's a lie. And what's equally preposterous is everybody's concerned about global warming, and the same liberals that are screaming that bullcrap are all buying SUVs that are guzzling more gas than your standard Honda or Toyota car. Why is that? They're consuming more material goods, which puts more greenhouse emissions out by factory production and manufacturing. Don't tell the liberals that. They might get mad at you. The liberals go and shop at the designer food stores. Everything is coated in plastic. When you take that plastic wrapper off, it takes a long time for that to dissolve. Plastic is toxic as heck. They've even studied water bottles. If people drink out of those plastic water bottles, that's not good for you. What's interesting is the liberal people that are complaining about all the damage to the environment are causing damage themselves just by their extravagant, self-centered lifestyles. Let's take cell phones. The production of cell phones is just boom, 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 boom. And then we got to update it, and we got to change it, and we got to... That a phone that's 2 years old is trash can material. Goes to the dump. Look up the word consume. If evolution is really true, then how come we moved from a society that used to watch out for our neighbors? We all worked in a neighborhood. We all had community. Why is that fragmented and gone? Why is it now people are obsessed with getting into debt for that brand new SUV? How did we get there? Have you watched any of the commercials in American television? They are flaky. They are unbelievable. They are contrived. That they talk to us like we're babies. That if you listen to any commercial, the women are fake. The men are fake. Beer commercials. What a joke. Mr. Testosterone. In control, cool, with a hot woman on his side. The beer commercials don't show us the truth about people who drink their product to excess. They don't go to the bars all across the American landscape that show the big old beer belly, the nasty-looking women, the grungy-looking men that drink and drink and drink. When I look at evolution, it's not hard for me to deduce we're not evolving. We're descending. We're descending to a very low level. We're arriving at a point now where people care less and less about each other and made a god or a goddess of themselves. And in so doing, have become more heartless, more jaded, more calloused. More Americans will pass somebody in an auto wreck and drive on without offering or rendering assistance to see whether they're okay. We've become like the hikers on Everest. Nope, I got a summit to bag. Sorry you're dying. See you, bud. True story. Everest hikers walk right by somebody dying, go bag the summit, walk back down, and say, "Look, I did it." And Americans are doing the same thing. I just bought my own SUV. Oh, isn't that wonderful? And everybody hand claps, everybody getting in debt and their materialism. I love the people that drive with all their stupid ribbons and their little junk all over the back of their SUVs, cars, the little stick figure family. I'm proud of my soccer student. I'm proud of my honor student. Support the cure for breast cancer. Support our troops. I have yet to see a ribbon that says support our turn signals, support our speed limits, support courteous driving. We're not evolving. I don't care what the scientists tell you. What they're saying is not scientific. It is not truth. It is garbage. Societally, we're getting worse. That the world in general right now is becoming very consumptive of goods. China's doing it. I just talked to my friend. He called me in between my routes the other day, dating a Chinese woman. They've been together for many months now. She's a sweetheart, but she is a member of the Communist Party in Guangzhou. And my friend from Cleveland, They obviously care and have feelings for each other. She said she loves him. And they both have talked to me on Skype, and they both talked to me on the phone yesterday. They were having a bit of a bickering. And my views have changed a little bit because we're living in very different times. My views about the truth of God's Word hasn't changed, mind you. But he said, Pacific, we're having problems. We're having arguments. We don't see eye to eye. I didn't realize she was right there, and I heard her in the back. I said, is she there? Yes. I said, put her on. There was a dispute about that they had a parade in China trying to bring back the nationalism of China. And my American friend said, but they're teaching lies about World War II. They're teaching lies. And I said, Anthony, our government's teaching us lies too. Did they ever teach us the truth about what we really did in the Philippines? It was Maharani who educated me that the people got tired of the U.S. presence down there because the guys were raping the women, the guys wanted to dominate and control. And the Philippines said, out. We have not done everything right as a U.S. of A. What does all this have to do with evolution? It has a lot to do with it. Because one theme always comes up. It's about relationships. It's about God. It's about the reality that there is a designer who designed you and me. And look what is happening with the atheists and the evolutionists. Let's talk about the difference in their values versus those of us that are ridiculous enough to believe in the myth of God. That our Bible teaches us to be kind to each other, not saying that all Christians do. I'm human. There's times I shoot off my mouth, cuss, and I'm like, you know what? You're a scumbag, you're a piece of trash, you're a douchebag. I admit it. But evolution does not foster kindness, love, warmth, care, compassion. If anything, the doctrine of evolution, the teaching of evolution, the brainwash of evolution has really jacked up today's youth. Today's youth are having sex, smoking pot, doing whatever they want. Mom, give me a cell phone. Mom, give me this. Mom, give me that. You go back 100 years ago, kids did not even think about behaving like they do now. They did not talk back to their parents. Dad would have taken a rubber hose off the tractor and went, push, said, get out in the field and work. It's a whole different world today. As Dorothy said, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. But the timeless truths of God's Word don't change. We change. Culture changes. People's ideals change. But God is the everlasting rock, and he doesn't change. And he created Adam and Eve, and we all descended from them. And evolutionists want to sit there and argue and split hairs saying, oh, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Evolutionists are the ones teaching that black people and Asians were all so radically different. And they refuse to look at the fact that we're one blood. And several years ago, I believe it was in the 90s, the evolutionists, yet again, somebody in the scientific community stood up after studying DNA and said, I have come to the conclusion that we all descended from a common ancestor. I could have had a V8. The Bible said that. You're laughing at the Bible. The Bible's a myth. And you, through your DNA studies, have confirmed that we are all interconnected. Yeah. God made the first man, Adam, the father of all the living. The first woman, Eve. They had babies. I'm a product of Adam and Eve, if you go right down the line. So are you. This idea of racism is generated by evolution. If you don't believe me, read Origin of Species, Darwin's little black box. Darwin looked down on the Aborigines. Darwin said that black people were inferior. The bottom underpinnings of Darwinism can be boiled down to one thing. Not smoking gun scientific proof that's made Christians look ridiculous for believing their myths, but a deep problem inside every single one of us, including myself, that when evil happens, we have a very hard time because we're very self-centered, we're very inverted, we're all self-protecting, and we go, God, how could you let this happen? How could he let it happen that millions of Americans are selfish, stuck up, rude, continue to prosper every single freaking day? Get more SUVs, get deeper into debt, crap on people, cut people off, steal, corporate execs get their bonus. Do we ever ask that? Oh, when a plane crashes and all these children from India get killed. Well, if there's a God, why would he allow that? Hey, let's go deeper than that. If there's a God, why does he allow all these bad people to prosper? Why did he allow Imelda Marcos to have 3,000 pairs of shoes and go to France and go to New York on junkets on the backs of hardworking Philippine people when the government is corrupt as hell? How does he let Barack Obama continue to be president when he lies to people? How does he allow Hillary Clinton to get more money than any one of my viewers watching me? She's a liar. She's guilty of Whitewater. She's guilty of Benghazi. She's guilty of the email scandal. On and on it goes. Why does God allow all this prosperity to go on with people who are the last people to deserve it? Why does God allow a Bill Gates to come up with something and everybody makes him a rock star and throws billions of dollars at his product? And he has one of the biggest homes up there in Washington. Why? Oh, but he gives away. Big deal. To what cause? Why does he allow a flaky outfit like Starbucks continue to have dominance in American culture, which seems to be a stronghold of liberals, global warmists, SUV, mall-toting, dog-worshipping people that got their lattes? Why does he allow that? Better yet, how come God hasn't sent a tsunami to wipe out all of California, all of New York, and all of Texas? 3 states got the biggest egos, hands down. How come he hasn't allowed a meteorite to hit the knob-headedness of the Midwesterners? How come he hasn't allowed all kinds of disaster to hit us, but Indonesia over there, they get 220,000 people. Japan, homes gone, everything. No insurance. And a government that didn't do squat. The dichotomy of what happens and what doesn't happen just alone proves that evolution is garbage. God gave us choice. God gave me a choice. I can take this thing right now, throw it through the window, and smash it. I'm not going to do that. That would be stupid, and I would get in trouble for that. The mystery is that God gave us choice, and yet he is sovereign at the same time. Something that our puny little minds, that if we can't figure it out in a scientific laboratory, we say, well, that must not be true. But we can sit there and say that the human body came into being by accident, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a mouth, a nose that can actually smell things, a tongue that can taste things, with saliva glands, that a man has a penis that can ejaculate and create, semen comes out of it, and it produces its own semen with sperm in it. And it takes that to get a woman pregnant. And it fertilizes the egg, and the egg becomes a baby. And it's the evolutionists that are devaluing life, not the Christians. It is the evolutionists that are teaching it's okay to murder, that it's just an embryo, that it's just a tissue blob in a woman's stomach. It's the evolutionists that are teaching us it's okay to go like this to everybody around you, because after all, it's survival of the fittest. There's no morals, there's no absolutes. But yet if you talk to an evolutionist, they'll tell you that evolution is absolute. Contradiction much? Evolutionists are not using science. It's all lies. It's humanistic bullcrap. And you can read every textual manual out there, and they don't prove a darn thing in their favor. It's rhetoric, it's lies, it's manufactured, fabricated garbage to push forth an agenda of world dominance that's going to make you pay more for going green. It's going to pay you, look at the hypocrisy of the whole oil thing. The Save the Earth people are screaming and yelling about consumption and greenhouse emissions, and those same people are driving expensive SUVs and paying more for food than they should because, after all, it's organic. Hey, wait a minute, dum-dums. I thought that if it's organic and there are no pesticides and there are no big tractors and big commercial stuff, it should be cheaper, right? Well, no, because there's not a lot of the organic people are cleaning up, man, and living in 32,000 square foot homes and driving Cadillac Escalades too. Hello? Yeah, we've evolved all right. We got doggy daycares, doggy spas. We got doggy funeral homes. Isn't that awesome? We didn't have any of those 100 years ago. That we have placed a pet higher than our neighbor. That women walking their dogs in a park will not say hi to me because I'm a male. But they'll talk to their dog. And if you turn that around, that's their God. Their Starbucks, their SUV, their self-importance, and their pet. Wow, we're arriving, aren't we? It's interesting that the mind is able to reason. Evolutionists like to say that we and animals are the same. No, we're not. People and animals are not the same. Genesis very clearly clears that up. He made all the creeping things that move along the face of the earth before he made man, and man did not come from monkeys. People can say whatever they want about chimpanzees, apes, baboons, and Homo erectus and all that junk. It's a baboon, it's a monkey, we're human. A monkey cannot pray. A monkey cannot reason. A monkey cannot even express the way we express. The ludicrousness that a cell washed up somewhere out of primordial Slimeville, washed up on Beachville, and started a whole population of what is us today is beyond absurd. That in that single-celled organism, that atheists still can't tell you where that first single cell came from because they don't know. They've buried themselves in so many lies that they've lost their ability to be rational and objective. No offense to my atheist viewers, but that is not rational to even believe in evolution. It just isn't rational. It's poppycock. I see evidence every day of a society going down. I see evidence every day that in America we're not improving a darn thing. Oh yeah, we got technological things that make this easier. Cars are more complicated. Go take your car to the mechanic and get it worked on. $3,000. We had to remove this, remove that, move that, move that. What? To change the oil filter? Yep, we had to take the whole top of the engine off to get to it. I thought we were evolving. I was looking at Craigslist at old pickups and stuff that were for sale, and I'm thinking, I don't want anything new. Our life is becoming more complicated, and the enemy of our souls, those of us that are Christians, those of us that are foolish enough to believe in the myth of God, and too dumb to buy into the evolutionistic caca of the day, we know that the enemy of our souls is trying to do everything he can to distract everybody. More noise, more blitzkrieg, more advertising, more stuff you got to have. And it's gotten to the point now, just the other day. Pacific, when are you going to get rid of that antiquated phone? Antiquated? It's 3 years. It has to be 100 years old to be an antique. And no, it's not even a collectible. Oh, but you can GPS. You can look up weather. I don't need to look up that. How did I get through Duluth, Minnesota? 5 years, no GPS, none of that stuff. I'd ask dispatcher, where's this place? Oh, you just take this highway that way. I can still ask directions. And even if I get into a town and I don't know where it is, I stop at a gas station. Can you tell me where Boo Boo Lake is? Yeah, just take a left on Boo Boo Road and go right on Boo Boo Lane, and there's Boo Boo Lake. Really? I got to have this stuff? I watch young girls today, and they truly have become retarded. Whether it's in my break room or anywhere else, that all they're doing now is this. They're not engaging with people anymore. They become narcissistic, and they become on a tiny head of the pin world. This is it. That's their worldview right there. Facebook, Twitter, tweet, and the media pushes it. The media encourages it. Do you not realize what's happening in our world today? The atheists, the evolutionists, those that have a sinister agenda of world dominance and to strip you of all your money and all your freedoms are trying to get you fixated on something so you don't really pay attention to what the hell is going on out there. You think I'm a conspiracy theorist? I'm not. That is exactly what is going on. Because one day the Antichrist is going to rise in. Everybody's going to go, oh yeah, give us bread in the circuses. And the Antichrist is going to stand up and say, I'll give you bread in the circuses. Ooh, he is God. and all hell's going to break loose. I get so tired of Christians trying to say, well, there's a possibility of theistic evolution. Not if you read Genesis. God said, let there be creature-making things, creatures. Oh, and he created the whales also. Interesting. Too many Christians today are afraid to take the stance they need to take because they figure if they mamby-pamby, water it down, and milk dud it all down, that everybody will embrace Jesus and go, yes, he is Lord. If evolution is true, the Bible is a fairy tale. If evolution is true, there is no God. If evolution is true, we don't need Jesus. If the earth is billions of years old, then the Bible is wrong. Because in it says he created the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh. A logical deduction from Adam and Eve, down to Moses, down to Abraham, and from Abraham you can pretty much travel on down the line and get a rough estimate of how old this earth is. Because the Jews are meticulous at keeping their records. For crying out loud, we can trace a lineage all the way to Jesus Christ. And we know he was here 2,000 years ago. So you add another 4,000 on that, and you get an earth that's about 6,000 years old. Evolutionists laugh. Why do they laugh? Because they're ignorant and they're in darkness. They look at this earth, oh, it just looks old. Oh, rocks and dirt's supposed to look. Rocks and dirt. Good grief. I would tell my viewers, never argue or debate evolutionists. As Dawkins said, he will not spend the time talking to Christians because he said they're dolts and idiots and on and on. And I'm paraphrasing big time, but he put us down. Conversely, I would say, to argue with a fool, there's 2 verses in Proverbs. One is, do not answer a fool according to his folly. And another one says, answer a fool according to his folly. That calls for discernment. When it comes to atheists, they're saying there's no God. You just smile at them and say, you know what, I'm going to keep praying for you. I got to go. Too many Christians have been taught to argue, to debate, to get an airtight case, the smoking gun proof that we're going to win this argument. I look at our world, and our world has been dehumanized by the belief in evolution. It has been desensitized by the belief in evolution. It is becoming much more criminalized because of the belief in evolution. Atheists ignore the very, very, very underpinning fact that more atrocities have been committed by atheism than so-called Christian beliefs. More people have been killed, including Hitler. To say that Hitler was a Roman Catholic, Hitler believed in evolution. And what's interesting is there's been people say that Hitler was part Jewish himself. Interesting, and he hated the Jews. That behind all the atheism, behind all the humanism and the evolutionism, it boils down to this. They're haters. They're dangerous. They're anti-Semitic. They're racist. And the sad thing is, Christ teaches me to be kind and to love my enemy, love my neighbor. Atheism and evolution does not teach that. And atheists will scream and yell, hey, some of us are better behaved than most Christians. Big deal. That doesn't prove a thing. Even atheists don't want their house robbed, or their wives raped, or atheist women, their husbands slaughtered. They don't believe in absolutes, they say, but they're lying. They do believe in absolutes. They believe that there is absolutely no God and that they absolutely came into being by randomness. Shoot holes in all their stuff, because that's all it is. It's a big colander. You pick it up and all the water goes, and you're left with a bunch of noodles. That's it. We don't need to get into quantum physics. We don't need to get into stellar galaxies and all this preposterous speculation. Number one, you weren't there when they were created, so you cannot talk. You're talking out of your bottom. God created all of that in the first couple chapters of Genesis. Did it. He spoke it into existence. And when I look at society and I look at people, that we're trying to redefine the morals. We're saying it's okay to be gay. It's okay to be this and that. It's okay to redefine the family. It's okay to chuck everything out the window. We're on the fast track to destruction. We're on the fast track to complete narcissism and selfishness, where each man does that which is right in his own eyes, as it says at the end of the book of Judges. And all that's going to come down from that is more trouble. There is no such thing as survival of the fittest except in one context. There is survival of the fittest, and the fittest is Jesus Christ, and he's been there forever and will continue to be there forever, and all these people that believe in survival of the fittest will go to hell, because God is going to survive long after evolution has left the world, and he creates a new world, and evolution will not be a belief system anymore. Evolution is man's attempt to solve the problems. Evolution is a thought control system that, because of a few selfish individuals that didn't understand suffering, and a few selfish individuals that like to think that it's okay to coddle the sin that God has forbidden. If you can say there's no God, then you can throw out rules. Ironically enough, those same fools want rules to protect them. But they want to tell us, don't you legislate morality. Well, don't you either, buddy. If I want to break into your house and steal, it is survival of the fittest. If I have the biggest Uzi and I like your wife, why can't I rape and pillage? Well, that's not right. How stupid and hypocritical you are to tell me what is right and wrong when you yourself said there's no absolutes. That morals are relative. That's right. If you're going to play that game and you got a bigger house than I do, then I can take it. But if there's a God, I don't have a right to take what isn't mine. If there's a God, I don't have a right to rape your wife. If there's a God, I don't have a right to do you harm. Whose belief system is safer, mine or yours? Though I disagree with you as an atheist, you're not going to have trouble from me as a neighbor. Unless you come into my house and want to monkey around, then that's another story. But you're the one that I have to worry about. Because your belief system is counterproductive. When you tell teenagers and children from very young ages that there's no absolutes and there's no God, they process that. Well, if all it's about is just living life and getting all you can, and gee, maybe that's why so many kids are getting into drugs, dropping out of school. It's like, well, if there is no God, then what do I need an education for? And the way the economy's going, I'm not going to get a good job anyway, unless I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to college. The atheists are a joke. The American education system is pathetic. You want an education? You're going to get deeply in debt to get it. And when you get out, there's no guarantee. I love atheists. I like the godless secular public school system in the United States with the colleges and universities. They're nice when you spend all the money. But as soon as you get your degree, they go bye-bye. No job placement, no job guarantee. They're not held to a high standard. You pay your money, you get nothing, and there's no return your receipt and get a money-back guarantee with the universities. The atheists are slick, aren't they? When are people in America going to wake up that atheism has not done us any good? It's not working out for us. It's atheism that allows people like Barack Obama and losers to get into office. It's atheism that allows people to pass a health care reform act that didn't reform anything, but made it even more expensive and denying even more people coverage, and then turning around and telling everybody you have to get health coverage, you're going to be fine. How funny is that? This is what atheism does. I'll call it a better word, godlessness. To say there is no God, the end result of that is the foolishness that we see bearing itself out. The stupid TV shows that Hollywood continues to put out and says this is really cool and funny. The blitzkrieg of car commercials. Come down to Deal and Doug's now. We got... All this euphoria, all this emotionalism, all these high-powered, get it now. Don't miss out. Don't drive that old jalopy. She won't date you. We're being machine gunned by materialism. We've been repackaged. Gone are the days when a woman just loved a man. Now she'll love you if you have this. Girls will not date me simply because of this. We've actually evolved at a point that if you don't have the latest smartphone, you're a dud for a date. If you don't have the newest car, you're a dud for a date. If you don't wear the clothes they think you ought to wear, emphasis they think you ought to wear, you're done. Evolution, huh? Our government gets deeper and deeper into debt. Wisdom tells me debt is bad, especially when the people holding those notes is one of our hugest enemies, China. Ni hao. I mean, this is ridiculous. Evolution can be shredded just by common sense. Evolution is shredded just by watching out the windshield of my school bus, of all things. Evolution thinks they're shredding God. They're not. They're shredding themselves. They're shredding our culture. They're shredding our society. They're stripping human dignity away from people and making a goddess and a god out of oneself, pursuing their fleshly, self-centered lusts. Our whole system in America has become more and more about, quote, success as the television defines it, as the evolutionists define it, not God. The Bible says, for all have fallen short of the glory. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. There is none righteous, no, not one. The evolutionists have their elitist belief system that makes fun of, mocks, and encourages violence, harassment, and persecution against those of us that don't believe in their gobbledygook. My belief system does not cause me to harass, badger, or cause problems to the atheist community. I don't agree with them, but even if they're my neighbors, I don't believe in turning up the music loud and disturbing them. I believe in respecting them as a human being. Most atheists I know don't share that view. After all, survival of the fittest. In fact, to go a step further, every place I've traveled, I just be me. Whether it's in Joplin, Missouri, in a swimming pool, an old balding pot-gutted man's in the pool, and, oh, where are you guys from? Arizona. Where are you going? I'm going to go check out Moody Bible Institute. Bible Institute. Why would you go to a Bible Institute? No kidding. Because I'm looking at ministry, because I want to know more about God. There is no God. A Campground of America, KOA, Joplin, Missouri. If it's still there, it was a cute place. Today, if you spend an hour in a swimming pool, in a place of recreation, getting upset because I believed in God. I came in the pool to swim. I had no intention of getting into a religious debate. He made it into that. And my tired self, after 500 miles of driving that day in a 62 Chevy truck that could go no faster than 55 on the downhill with a camper on it, thought, okay, this guy wants a little attention. Let's give it to him. Sir, you're standing there condemning my belief because the Old Testament called for the killing of people. If a man broke into your house and was trying to murder your wife, would you defend her? Before he could answer, his wife was standing in the pool, and she said he probably wouldn't. I love that. Do you know what that did when she said that? He turned around and they exited the pool and fought all the way back to their RV. Fun! That ended that. What I noticed while I was talking is a younger couple sitting on the deck of the pool with their legs in the water. And the woman says, "Who are you?" I said, oh, and introduced myself. She goes, that was awesome. I've never seen anybody do that before. I said, do what? Now, that atheist going around, we're actually searching. And to see a young guy like you defend God and say the things you say, we're just like, whoa. So that was a divine appointment. The atheist accomplished nothing. But it sounds like his own wife got tired of hearing her husband bellyache about God. And here I am. She said not one word the whole time as dialogue was going on. And I said, so, somebody came in and tried to harm your wife. Would you defend her? Would you do something? Would you kill a man? And she very rudely says, probably not. Thank you, ma'am, for ending this foolish conversation, because now your husband's got something else to rage about. True story. They left the pool, left the area. Then we got to focus on a couple that was interested. The sad thing about atheism and evolutionists is that they just don't seem to realize that this is not all there is. We're too complex for that. There's a designer involved. He calls the shots. He put the whole thing into motion. And he's going to hold us all accountable, even Pacific. And there's a place called heaven and there's a place called hell. And if you deny the existence of God, you're going to hell. Simple. People get offended by that. Oh, I'm tired of hellfire and brimstone preachers. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm tired of a lot of things too that you guys are dishing out. Cutting me off in my truck. You're endangering my life, and I've done nothing to you to deserve that. Speeding. 60 miles an hour in a 25 zone. You think because you didn't get caught and you didn't hit anything that there's nothing wrong with that. You're a danger, not my beliefs. My belief in God teaches us that it doesn't matter if somebody's red or yellow, black and white. It doesn't matter if somebody's an atheist or whatever, that I need to respect people, that I need to love my neighbor and my enemies, that this ridiculous God that I believe in actually calls for social order. Atheism calls for random freaking chaos, which is all we're getting from that community. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, the atheists scream and yell about a nativity scene on a courthouse lawn, and I go, what is the big problem? It's a matter of separation in church and state. So you're losing sleep over some little target nativity scene on a courthouse lawn. That's bothering you that much? If God isn't true, what is the problem? You don't say anything when the gays are up on the courthouse with all the rainbow flags and their little men in their panties walking around. Oh, but that's okay. Hey, separation of church and state applies. What's all this crap on the courthouse lawn with a gay agenda? You don't protest when there's a craft fair on the courthouse square. Boy, that seems like that would be incompatible to the government. We're going to have a craft fair on government property. The reason atheists have a problem with all that is because they're convicted. Because they're not so convinced there isn't a God. So they're trying to fight their own little war of jihad and say, well, we're going to get rid of this God. And Psalms 2 bears that out. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? What is the vain thing they're imagining? There is no God. We're God. And if this guy calls himself God, we're going to take him down. But he who sits in the heavens will laugh and have them in derision. I've installed my son on my holy hill. Kiss the son, lest you perish. God wins. God always wins. And even if Pacific is killed with a sword and put in the grave, God wins and God has me in his hand and I go to heaven. It doesn't matter what the fools believe. Let them believe whatever they want. Let them truck on into the lake of fire and ring their little bell and blow their little evolutionist flutes all they want. The devil's going to look at them and laugh and go, you stupid fool. I'm the one that came up with that belief, not you. Man thinks he's so smart. Man thinks that wrong ideas, they come from the devil. It says even the devil believes there's one God. The demons believe and they tremble. Even the devil's not stupid enough to say there's no God. But he loves playing on his puppets and get them to think that due to their great intellectualism and holding up in their Ivy League enclaves and running with their elitist mentality groupies and thinking actually the preposterousness that Darwin was an intellectual, that almost every atheist I've met, it all boils down to this. They don't believe because of the bad things that go on in the world. And yet they're hypocrites in that very sense of the word, because atheism has brought a whole host of social ills, evils, immoralities, and bloodshed all across this globe. But they deny that, and they say, look at all the problem that religion has caused. There's been more people killed by atheism than there has by religious wars, hands down. But here's something the atheists don't want to hear. Muslims, Buddhists, Taoists, Confucius, all the isms out there, they don't believe in the truth. So they're right in the same party, the same campground, same picnic arena that the atheists are in. They are godless, less of God. They don't have God. So whether it's the atheists running Stalin and Lenin camp, or the Buddhists to deny that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, they're all exactly the same. Lost souls. That being said, they're all going to hell. They're all polluting the world with religious wars, with atheist and evolutionistic wars. They're all doing the same thing because they submit to the same master who's the great puppet master of their souls. Atheists hide behind their feigned intelligence that think that, oh yes, we've got this airtight argument against God. They can't even figure out a damn atom. They can't even explain where the first living cell came from. Because even an atheist, even Louis Pasteur said life doesn't just show up in a petri dish and go, interesting. Life came into existence because God said. He breathed into the dust of the earth and made Adam. The atheists laugh at that. And yet, when a body decomposes, it's interesting. Magnesium, copper, nickel, all that stuff is in us. Funny, that's all in dirt. Isn't that ironic? That our body, we're supposed to eat rocks, dude. Copper, magnesium, iron. Stuff that came out of the ground, really? Yeah, God breathed into the dust. And they laugh at that. That are recommended daily allowances set up by the RDA, the Food and Drug, FDA, Food and Drug Administration. That the stuff that we need comes from the very dirt that we were created from. And evolutionists laugh at that and mock at that. And they're so blind that they don't laugh at the preposterousness that some cell climbed up on the beach and in some constipation dance kept going, and after millions of years became one organism that suddenly was able to reproduce all this stuff that became us. You've got to be kidding me. Nope. Dead serious as a heart attack. That is the long and short of evolution. Quantum physics doesn't prove anything. Stellar quasars doesn't prove anything for them. It's all speculative hobby horses. Black holes and all this other junk. God created an infinite bunch of stuff out there that we know nothing about. And man, in his puny little mind, is trying to get his arms around it, and God has said, you got to be kidding me. You cannot fully know all there is to know about God and his creation. There is no way. God has made it that way. Only in heaven will our deepest questions be answered. But some questions were already answered, but atheists refuse to see that. The problem of suffering? Of any tree in the garden you may eat, but not that one. And the lie that is what we are experiencing in Western cultures and is being exported around the globe is that the same lie that Adam and Eve believed. Hey, Eve, you're a woman. God's holding it. He doesn't want you enlightened. You need to stand up for equality here, Eve. Don't take that from God. Eat that tree. You go, girl. Eve opened the door for feminism, lesbianism, rebellious women, Jezebel spirits. In fact, Eve opened the door for the disgusting nature of most American women today. And what do women say today over and over? I ain't submitting to no man. I ain't doing this. I ain't doing that. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care what anybody blah, 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 blah. Enlightened or enslaved to a lie? I agree with you, Josh. You know, I've never liked American culture. I find it boring. When you have a culture that's steeped in godless belief system, it's going to be boring. Now, to my atheist viewers out there, the ones that are kind, I know there's problems in the church in America. We talked about that. We don't need to beat a dead horse there. A lot of Christians live in their own forms of bondage as well. We're not going to get into that. But evolution is a joke. When you look at the human body and you just look at something as simple as the kneecap, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. Toes. If you don't have toes on your feet, you lose your balance. You look at the way the muscles are put together, the cartilage and everything, it's amazing. This all just happened by accident with no designer, that this all just knew how to organize itself without any impetus whatsoever. One of my atheist friends that I worked for a while said, it's the beauty of randomness. You've got to be kidding. I'm sorry, but two cars skidding through an intersection and hitting each other don't produce beauty. A bunch of junk floating around crashing into each other doesn't produce what we're talking about now, you or I. Just as it is ridiculous to an evolutionist for me to walk into a science laboratory and say this evolved all by itself, had nothing to do with it. This can showed up with spray with enough pressure to exit it out, the aerosol nozzle. They'd laugh. And yet we're much more complex than that stupid can. Evolution is not true even in the remotest. Evolution cannot be proved scientifically. Evolution is brainwash to a bunch of ignorant people, and we see the dumbing down of people. I see less people using their turn signals today, less people coming to a complete stop at the stop sign, even less people stopping behind the white line at the cross. That people do things with witnesses out there on the roadways, in life, not even thinking, hey, you know, just 50 people just saw you pull that boneheaded move. The dumbing down of our culture is a very real dynamic. And what's really sobering is evolution has dumbed us down. Let me say it again. It's the atheists and the evolutionists and the godless people that have an agenda. They don't want all to prosper. This idea that the Democrats or the Republicans want everybody to have the right to the American dream, that's a lie. The people making the big money, they don't want us all at the top with them. You got to be kidding. Evolution is a form of control. Because if you can get people to believe that we're destroying our planet, then you can legislate and say, oh, can't cut this down, can't do this, can't do that. The evolutionists are stupid. The Save the Earth people are stupid. Have they read in Revelation what God's going to do to this planet? He's going to trash it big time when he judges it. People making a big deal over Cecil the lion, even making death threats against the dentist who killed him. And I think that the dentist was dead wrong in what he did. But now we're going to threaten to kill somebody because he killed an animal? That's what evolution has done, folks. Women don't care about men anymore. They care about their damn dog. That's what evolution has done. Evolution has allowed Americans to throw their minds in the trash can and say, oh, I'm all about Starbucks. Got to get in debt for that issue. That is all the result of evolution. Come on, Pacific Christians have bought into it too. Of course they have. Of course they have. Because they don't know their God as deeply as they should. And they don't care to. Most Christians in the U.S. are satisfied with nominal, skin-deep Christianity. Oh, I'm saved, got my fire insurance, go to church every week, and hi, God bless you, and that's it. Most Christians can't even be genuinely real with themselves. They can't even be honest about their own sins while they wag their finger at the sins of others. Evolution has had a huge far-reaching effect in our world. Right here on my shirt, a doggone place called Darwin, Australia. What a mistake. A lot of Australians believe in Darwin. I don't have a real high opinion of Aussies as it is, so that go figure. Evolution is a dumb belief system. There's no truth to it. The argument about adaptation is a proof. Adaptation is something that God put into the animals because God sees the big picture. God knows that the climate was going to change. And why did the climate change? Because man ate the fruit. We were in a greenhouse environment back then. And when the heavens burst forth and the Noahic flood came, everything changed. So global warming was going on long before there were factories and automobiles and smokestack pipes. Did you know that? The Ice Age ended long before there was any manufacturing whatsoever. The evolutionists don't teach you that in the evening news, do they? They got all this crapola that a meteorite hit and wiped out everything, even though there's no proof of meteoric dust all coating the whole globe. Instead, if we had a meteor impact, we would have no fossils to speak of. It would have blasted things. But if we have a global flood, which took deposits and rock layers and sediment and buried all these animals, encasing them, that's how we get a fossil. But the evolutionists laugh at us for believing in a global flood and a man called Noah. They try to tell us that man and dinosaurs didn't exist at the same time. That's true. I think dinosaurs came a day before Adam and Eve did. One day. And Adam and Eve were walking right there with dinosaurs. Job saw them too. Interesting. They deny the fact that there's, even in the old science books, there's a picture of dinosaur footprints and man footprints in the same rock strata down in Texas. That's not the only place they found those. Smoking gun. So much for the idea that dinosaurs and man didn't exist at the same time. How stupid is that? China's got dragons. You go into France and there's pictures of woolly mammoths drawn on a cave and other animals that no longer exist. Some of them dinosaurs. Interesting. How did man know what they looked like if they were dead and there was nothing there? You cannot argue with those that believe in this, because what drives them more than anything else is not logic, not science, not smoking gun proof. What drives the atheists and the evolutionists to believe what they believe is they do not want to believe in God. They don't want to believe in God. Even if God showed up, they'd still deny him. And God has shown up. Creation testifies to the existence of God, from the quasars, the stars, the black holes, to me, to the human body, to the plants, to just the fact of Earth itself and its own uniqueness to support life. And all the digging around in NASA's butt hasn't produced any smoking gun proof of life on any planet out there at all. They're looking at a bunch of desert landscapes on moons and planets out there and saying, oh, there's evidence of water. Big deal. We spent billions of dollars to come up with that. Don't even get me started on how corporate America proves that evolution has destroyed us. Corporate America is all about grabbing everybody's money, an elitist mentality. I've noticed something. The so-called big shots that drive the luxury cars, they don't know how to drive. Turn signals, speed limits, traffic laws, stop signs, that don't mean anything to them. I find that very interesting. What we're seeing is the fruit of what we have sown in our culture showing up. The chickens have come home to roost. We were taught college is it, degrees are it, the fast car was it. And those same people are denying the existence of God, putting all their eggs in the basket of an educational system that is godless to the core. And their behavior is following suit. They're not faithful to their wives. They're not raising proper children with God-directed values. They don't drive their car the speed limit and live by example. The majority of Americans do not believe in living by example. They talk, but they don't believe in living by example. That has been lost in an evolutionistic-based culture. There's really nothing else that needs to be said. But I find it interesting that just the very simple parts of the human body alone testify against such ridiculousness. That just all the parts that make the elbow do this, and the way the blood vessels and muscles and ligaments and stuff that make all this range of motion, that all just happened by accident, no designer. And yet an evolutionist would laugh if I said that this just created it all by itself. Do you know an evolutionist can't even make a fruit tree? Can't even make a seed? Can't. Folks, it's not rocket science. In fact, evolution isn't science. It doesn't matter what Dawkins or Darwin or a host of scientific symposiums have to say. The bottom underpinning, the foundation of all of this heretical belief system, they don't want to believe in the existence of God because God infringes upon their self-centered wills. That's why evolution exists. I don't want to be told what to do. I'm gay, and I like playing with other men. And I'm not going to have you tell me that there's absolutes, because there's no God. You get rid of God, then you get rid of absolutes. A little salve on your conscience, or you can go continue doing what you're doing. But what about the atheists that aren't gay? They have their thing that they want to do, whether it's committing adultery, being materialistic, being self-centered. The only way you can reconcile the fact that we're sinners is to say there's no God, so therefore we don't sin. It's not that atheists and scientists actually came to a logical-based conclusion that there is no God and we've proven it. It's that they don't want to believe there's God. So then they went out and invented a theory so that they could take themselves off the hook. The fact is, the relentless attacks that they do for those of us that believe contrary to theirs proves the existence of God as well. If I believe a myth, why are you getting so rattled about it? Why are you making so much fun of me? Why are you encouraging ridicule and mocking? Do you give that same level of attention, time, and energy to the belief that a black cat crossing your path is bad luck? That a cracked mirror is an omen of bad luck? Do you? How about Bigfoot and UFOs? Oh, that's right. You're okay with all that crap. You think that might actually be true. When you're blind, you don't see, evolutionists, but I see. You don't. It's simple as that. Reason and wisdom comes from God, not man. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. That's out of Psalms, not me. It's amazing that people can believe such a lie. They will doom them to hell. And they boast and brag and they laugh and they mock all the way there. No, stupid Christians. Ah. The minute they die, the second they cross the threshold when their body breathes its last, they'll be very aware that they have a soul, that they don't just turn into dirt. They're going to know within a nanosecond, oops, guess I believed the wrong thing. As my friend said the other day, if Darwin could come back, or as if Anton LaVey could come back. Transgender health care. All right. What's this? Now they're fighting for transgender health care. Another product of evolution. Evolution is a belief system that started because of unbelief. Unbelief in the truth. Darwin cannot accept the fact that there's a God who allows all this bad stuff to happen. And we've raised a whole generation of sensitive little crybabies today. That when something bad happens, well, if God's so loving. No, fool. God is merciful in the fact he lets you live and spew the garbage that comes out of your mouth. You should be humbled and fall prostrate. Or is that prostrate? And say, whoa, great is our God. You just don't realize the freedom God has given you to make a choice. You just don't realize that that freedom is going to be called in one day. And God's going to say, you're done. It doesn't make sense to believe in evolution. So what drives it? And if you look at the behavior of those who rigidly hold on to it, they don't want to believe in a God. They don't want to believe they're a sinner. They don't want to believe in absolutes because then it means they have a problem. That's what drives this belief. Not science, not facts, not test tubes. Science is no enemy of God and faith. In fact, Louis Pasteur had faith in God. Many of the leading scientists of their day had faith in God. Even Darwin himself said things that the atheists don't like to talk about. He said that the fossil record was evidence against evolution. Interesting, Darwinists. His own wife had a problem with his teaching. She didn't agree with it. She went to the Church of England. That's what I read. So if I'm wrong, don't shoot me. Darwin did nothing for the world. Nothing. He gave a bunch of illiterate, ignorant men a belief to grab onto, so they say, oh, now we got a reason why we don't have to believe in God. Good, we're free from all his laws and commands. We're done. Ha. Those atheists and evolutionists hijacked our universities, hijacked the educational forum, and now instead of teaching truth, are brainwashing our children to become little rebels, vigilantes, and haters and racists, and on it goes. Homosexuals and, question authority and all that. It's been going on for some time. No, atheism is not good for the world. Evolution is not good for the world. It doesn't solve the problems. It's man-centered. It's humanistic. And all we're doing is digging ourselves a deeper hole, to which Jesus Christ says, I will reign. I will make all the enemies my footstool under my feet. Jesus is the only one that's going to solve the humanitarian crisis. I gotta go to work. This is Pacific signing off. Bye-bye.